If you can find a little cup, make sure you don't put this in the microwave because I have wire in it. But I'm talking about the cup with the hot water. If it's hot enough to steep tea, then you can put this in. I think it helps. I think it helps to have a boiled or a cooked clavicle, but I'm not sure how feasible it is today. You could do this at home. But this one is already cooked, so I'm gonna, and it already has a wire in it. And just like the other things that I did with wire in it, the wire was much longer and I trimmed it later. So this is just ready to go. Remember, this is no different than how we did the fibula. Got it? So this is something that you guys just get. Now, watch what I do. I'm just gonna stick this on there because it has wire on both ends.
Sorry.
Now what I'm also doing, if you can't see it, I'm just mushing clay into it. Okay, it's kind of logical that I want to have it floating because the clavicle does not rest on the humerus, it would kind of scrape. So basically you do not want to do that. You want to make sure that there's wire inside, it's cooked, because when I put the scapula on, the scapula has to basically float. Do you see how like it's floating away from the rib cage? It's not resting on this wire at all. Do not let it rest on this wire. The only place that the scapula is going to be touching this écorché is right here at the ball. I'm going to mush that ball into the scapula. Got it? So you need to make sure that you guys remember that. Because the left one is done very differently than the right. Okay? The right one is not as much of a problem because you have all that clay there. And even the clavicle on the right side, you just make a clavicle that basically will rest on that piece of clay that you have on there. So I'm going to make a real quick one. You'll make a really nice one. But basically you make something that looks like a clavicle over here. Do you see what I just did? Kind of like that. Now that's a messy one. You'll just take a little bit more time, but it's really strong and it's really secure. Like that. So it's ready to take on the spine of the scapula. Like this. And anytime you want to secure something, you blend it so it becomes one piece of clay. If you leave it just stuck on there, I was telling somebody this earlier, if you leave it stuck on there when you bake it, sometimes it breaks off. But if you blend it, you're making it like all one piece of clay. That makes sense, right? I think you guys all kind of like logically know that that's what happens. So in this case, watch. I'm blending. So now you have a nice clavicle. Little makeshift clavicle, but on the right side it's much stronger because of course it's all solid. Okay, so there's that. Now it's time to make the scapula. You guys ready for this? One of the hardest bones to make. I know I scared Dan earlier. Some of this stuff. It's a walk in the park. You know, if it's Central Park at night. Okay, so now. You know, the molasses jar thing made it to the YouTube video. Yeah, it's getting like millions of hits now. Like the girl with the Friday song. So it's out there. Okay.
Well, if you never get a million, start paying you. So. No, if you break like a million views, they start actually paying you for actually the work.
Okay, so watch. This is the scapula. So I already started all that. It's all good. So what I'm going to do is basically, all of these are actual size, so I can see that I need to trim off a little bit. These are all actual size. I'm doing the left one, so the left one's right there. I mean, that's how nice and handy these are. You like that? Okay, so now, I'm just doing the main shape. The spine of the scapula is born out of this chunky little piece. See, it's nice and thick. It's about like this. It's got good thickness to it. See, it's substantial. It's really hard to make it as delicate as it really is with this scale. It really is. So you just don't fight it too much. Do the best you can, but I'm going to do a kind of like a reasonably thick one because I think that's what you guys can do. And it's not an insult. I'm just saying that's what you need to do. And it doesn't need to be that much thinner. But did you notice that what I did is I pinched the spine of the scapula out of this? Got it? So basically you take this and there's a superior aspect or a part that's above the spine of the scapula and an inferior aspect which is below the spine of the scapula. Okay, there is a part that is in front. This is the coracoid process, and that I put in from the front. because otherwise you'll mush everything up. So I don't put this in until it's on the body. So basically what I end up with something kind of like this. This is just the beginning. You could put a lot more detail into this, but do you see what I just did? Now, to me, this looks like South America. So I'm holding the Tierra del Fuego right now. I was actually born like right up here in Colombia. So I'm a little Colombian boy. So I'm part of this little part of South America. The reason I say that is because one time I was playing Pictionary and I got the card and it did say South America. So what I drew to me looked like actually not South America, it looked like the scapula. Everybody else said South America. They're not going to say scapula. But ever since then, it's like, oh yeah, so that's a Tierra del Fuego. That's the part that the Tierra del Fuego you could actually make pop out. What's really interesting about the Tierra del Fuego is a lot of my students use that term now. So in my book, in my anatomy book, Ray's Anatomy, I actually use that term, Ray's Anatomy. But I always do in quotations, just in case you look for it in other books and you don't find it. Or somebody Googled it, and it's like, it doesn't say anything about scapula, but it had a picture of South America. I go, I know, that's the real Tierra del Fuego. So watch this. This is the spine of the scapula. Remember that it's at a more than right angle to the line here, the medial line. Remember that it's more than a right angle. It's not a right angle, it's more than a right angle. That is something I have to reiterate so that next week you don't do that wrong. What I'm doing is I'm liberating this part of the scapula, the acromion process. Do you remember that? I'm pulling it away like cantilevered above because there's actually a muscle that goes through here. I don't know if this is like the thing I saw with Alonzo. He could separate his shoulder because the ball of the humerus is like this. This is the left arm. This is basically, he could actually pop this out. Okay, but it's these muscles that are weak on him, or the tendons are weak, and allows him to do that because basically the rotator cuff muscles are the ones that go from here, underneath, and another one here. 4 of them basically hold that ball in like that. It's not real strong. In other words, this socket is not very deep, so it can slip out, but it does take some pretty good jarring. But once it happens, like I don't know what happened to Alonzo, but on him, it comes out much more easily, and it shouldn't, actually. So here's this. Here's the left arm. Here's the scapula. So this is going to be liberated, and I just did. Now this next part, though, because the acromion process is actually pretty tricky to do. Okay, see this? I'm going to make this right now, but watch, because since you're looking from another point of view, I'm going to try to make this as clear as possible. See my fingers? I have an index finger and a thumb. My index finger is above my thumb. When I make the turn, my thumb is going to be on top, meaning I'm turning like a key. Okay, so I'm going to just do this, and watch my thumb underneath here because I'm pressing it up here. Watch, it's just a real simple motion. But I'm going to twist this so that the bottom part is going to be on the top. So watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to push this like this, push into it, and this is the acromion process of the scapula. So now that's basically what I just did right there. Yeah, by just turning it. Now the other thing about the spine of the scapula is it has what's called a tubercle, and it's this thing that looks like a wave going over my finger. Do you see how it looks like a little wave going over my finger? That's because, remember when I put my hand representing the deltoid fits right in there. It's going to fit right in there just like a puzzle piece. It's really quite beautiful, and when you actually finish this skeleton, start putting muscles on there, you'll see how beautiful all this stuff is because the muscles fit right in there just like little puzzle pieces. So this basically rolls over, and not a finger, but like a little tiny finger. So now it looks like what it should. The scapula is only going to be touching the ball of the humerus. See how it's floating? Floating, it's floating. It's only touching the ball of the humerus. See that? Now I'm going to attach, remember the wire that's inside the clavicle? That's going to help hold everything together. I'm just going to put this and marry these two little pieces, and that clavicle actually helps hold it up. So that is both the clavicle and the scapula. And now that little thing that I told you about, the coracoid process, comes in from the front. And it'll look like a little tiny finger. And it really is very small. If you look at the finished one,